Hi everybody and welcome to English Digest. I'm Pat.
And I'm Elsie.
And we're going to look at another topic-based writing unit for this month. And this one is all about food waste, which is a big problem that's facing the modern world. It's something we've got a full article about in our same magazine, looking at the different ways that supermarkets and organizations are recognizing that food waste is a problem. But let's kind of get that down to the personal level. What are our approaches to dealing with food waste?
Oh, for me, I would put the food in fridge.
Mm-hmm.
But here you mean food waste, that the food we don't want anymore, right?
Exactly, yeah.
To be honest with you, I just throw it in the trash can.
Okay. I mean, that's fair. You can't kind of eat food that's not good anymore. I just tend to keep an eye on like what's in the fridge and have a mental sort of what can I do with it and a clock that says when have I got to do something with it. So that if there's bits of leftover vegetables or tofu or something like that, I start to think, what can I make with this?
Oh.
One particularly sort of British approach is curry, because you can look at every bit of leftover vegetables, like I've got one carrot, I've got an onion, I've got a few mushrooms, I've got some pumpkin, I've got these little bits in this. Well, if I stick them all in one big pot with a lot of curry spices and a bit of tomato, then bang, I've made a curry and I've cleared out all this stuff in my fridge.
Yeah, and you're not wasting any food.
That's the idea. My wife says the same thing with fried rice. That can kind of accommodate, a little bit of tofu and an egg and some rice and some vegetables. Another one could be you can 泡面 almost.
泡面.
Yeah, like if there's a bit of there's some leftover tofu, there's an egg, there's some vegetables, there's a bit of meat. I can kind of cook a 泡面but just make it with soup and boil all those ingredients, and then I've got, it's not really 泡面at that point, it's like real noodles with a bunch of ingredients.
But maybe it's going to be more delicious.
Yeah, and it hopefully will be more nutritious as well.
Yeah.
But let's look at our topic and our instructions in a bit more detail. The instructions say, with an introduction to the topic, around 16.5 million tons of food is wasted in Taiwan every year. Please write an essay of at least 120 words and talk about food waste in Taiwan. Now we have some more specific instructions. In the first paragraph, describe examples of food waste you see in life. In the second paragraph, explain your views on what changes you think the government can make or how you can start from yourself to reduce food waste, and so on.
今天呢，我们的主题写作是叙述论说文。那提示说到的是根据统计呢，台湾每年浪费了约1650万吨的食物。请你写一篇至少120个单词的英文作文，谈谈你对台湾食物浪费的看法。第一段注意哦，要描述你在日常生活中所观察到的食物浪费现象。第二段才要说明你认为政府可以做哪些改变，或是你自己如何从自身做起，还有这可以如何帮助减少食物浪费的问题。
So since this article is about us, we'll be using the first person. I saw this, I do this, I think this. For the first paragraph describing experiences, you'll be using past tense, present perfect tense, but also just simple present. We do this every day. We do this every week. For the second paragraph, you might start using some modal verbs. I could do this, I should do this, we can try this, we might do this, and so on.
那要注意哦，因为呢提示当中是问你认为你看到的东西，所以我们要用第一人称 I 来做叙述。
One thing to remember is if you can't think of any real experiences of your real life that apply to you, make it up. Even if your story isn't 100% true, follow the same approach we're going to explain and you will still come up with a good piece of writing.
那考试如果临时想不到，就赶快编一个，好，不要花太多时间在思考这件事情。那再来我们要看到的是何谓叙述论说文，指的是呢一篇文章当中涵盖叙述跟论说两种文体，也出现在近期的大考作文当中。例如呢105年的学测，你认为家里生活环境的维持应该是谁的责任？108年学测也有哦，身为台湾的一份子，台湾最让你感到骄傲的是什么？还有像是110年指考的，你是否认同以英语授课趋势，并说明如果你就读的必修课以英语授课，你会如何因应？所以你看，这些都是考古题，都跟叙述论说文相关。那第一个部分，我们要叙述某个现象、经验或是事件；第二个部分，再针对主题加以论说，做出结论，在最后的位置。那两部分的顺序也可以是对调的。
So this is kind of a mixed essay. The first part is like a narrative essay. You're describing things you've seen and experienced. But the second part, it's more of an argument essay. You're giving reasons for something. You're supporting it. You're saying what this will achieve and trying to convince your readers that this is a good idea.
接下来我们要写什么，怎么写，也是要小心的哦。英文作文的架构一样，我们分为引言 Introduction、主体 Body， 还有结论 Conclusion。那本篇叙述论说文也是要以这样子的架构来发展。
So as with all essays, we need an introduction to let people know what the topic is about, a body that gives us all of the explanation, your ideas, so your experiences, and then your arguments of what you could do, and then a conclusion to bring everything together.
Introduction 是文章的引言，说明文章要探讨的动机。那全文的主旨句，也就是 thesis statement， 常常在第一段就点出来。那在描述经验合并论说的文章当中 ，Introduction 有以下几种方法开头：第一个，直接开始叙述这个现象、经验或是事件；第二个，说明一般人对这个主题的看法。以下两篇范文呢，都是在开头点出自己的经验，所以我们等一下会来看范文当中到底写的是什么。
Your introduction should be short and straight to the point. You'll need to use the key words food waste in the first sentence or maybe the second, as well as maybe the ideas of food waste in Taiwan specifically and it being a global problem. Just be careful not to write an introduction that's too long, as you may run out of time for thinking and space for writing the actual body.
没错，针对主题点出现象，然后呢，不要写得这么长，因为它只是 introduction 而已。再来才要到文章的主体，也就是 body 的部分。第一部分呢，通常是描述这个主题。第一篇范例，好，等一下我们要看的第一篇，它在第一段就描述在日常生活当中观察到的食物浪费现象。第二部分则应该要说明自己对这个主题的看法，可以分析这个主题造成的影响，以及可以如何改变。那要注意议论的方向必须呼应第一段所描述的内容，以达到文章的一致性跟连贯性。
The body is all the key information, and this is where you need to follow the instructions in the prompt about paragraphs and what's in them, and you need to make sure your ideas build onto each other, flow from one to the next, that your points and your arguments are given support in the second paragraph, and so on.
最后呢，来到了 conclusion， 也就是文章的结论，说明意义和体会。那在叙述论说文当中呢，我们可以第一个简单总结前面提到的重要性或好处；第二个对主题提出反省跟检讨，或者是改善的方法也可以。
A conclusion should be short and it shouldn't introduce new information. Wrap things up and link back to the introduction and the main idea of your essay, the problem of food waste and how to reduce it. So now we need to brainstorm and get some good ideas.
在我们今天的 brainstorming time 里头呢，我们可以用问题解决组织图来架构这篇写作的内容。你可以先设定你想要探讨的主题，并且写下这个主题的问题以及解决的办法。最后呢，你就可以把组织图所列出来的重点延伸整理成你的 outline。
You can brainstorm your ideas in lots of different ways, but you should definitely do it for pretty much any kind of article to get you thinking. Ways to do this include writing simple notes, making a word web, using a chart, making some bullet points. Whatever works for you, you'll find the best approach that gets you thinking of your ideas quickly. Now, since this article is all about problems and solutions, you can brainstorm these in a chart that makes it easier to see the relationship between each problem and its solutions. For example, problem, food going bad in the fridge. Solution, go shopping more often, prepare food ahead of time and freeze it so that it doesn't go bad in the fridge. Then there's a problem, so that's a personal one, what you can do. The next problem is to do with more of a social problem, something that happens in society. Buffet restaurants throw away lots of food, and the solutions are mentioned here. France and Italy made laws that have made it easier to donate unsold food. France made it illegal to throw unsold food away, and then more governments should follow this example. Copy these ideas if they're working.
所以上方的问题跟解决办法比较是私人的，那下方的呢就跟国家政府是有关系的。那接下来呢，我们要提供一些描写食物浪费可以用到的相关字词。那以下的字词呢都有丢弃的意思，提几个给同学们认识，像是呢throw something away 或者 throw something out， 那就把它丢掉。还有像是我们可以用 get rid of 这个片语来说。再来还有像是 dump、dispose of 或是 discard 都可以使用。那再来形容食物坏掉的单字跟片语也有很多哦。我们可以用什么呢？像是主词放上食物，后面接 go bad， 代表它坏掉了。go off 那就是变质腐败了。那如果像是牛奶类的制品，我们可以把它放在主词，然后后面用 go sour， 那就是变酸。那还有像是 spoil 这样子的动词，也可以代表食物变质或是坏掉。那还有一个形容词 moldy， 代表这个东西发霉了。
So now let's put this brainstorm into the right order of sentences. Later we can connect them together and add more details, but we start with a nice simple structure. So paragraph 1 with our introduction, I have helped my parents shop and cook for as long as I can remember. So this introduces the topic of food, and we know that's going to lead us to waste. And we also see straight away this is the writer's personal experiences.
他一开始呢提到自己自身的经验，那接下来就要谈论到观察到的现象是什么。So how do people waste food? In this case, it might be your parents or your family. His parents or his family.
Right, you're talking the personal experience of seeing food waste here. So we get to the main points of the body and how this leads to waste. A, we buy a lot of food. B, when we get busy, it's easy to let some of that food expire. So expire means go off, go bad, not be good anymore. And C, we have to throw it out. So this is where we get to the problem. The food expires. We've got the cause of the problem, buying too much, and the result of the problem, food is wasted. That covers all the things we need in paragraph 1, all the personal experiences. What is food waste? How does it happen in this person's experience? Of course, we can add more details later and connect the sentences in the full paragraph, but this is a pretty good skeleton to build on.
OK， 所以我们这边看到呢，买太多造成食物浪费是这个人观察到的现象。那再来就是第二段，你应该怎么样从自身做起，帮忙减少浪费。那当然还有更多的 supporting details 细节，之后再增加。这边先将你的 outline 给整理好，架设好。
So now we move to paragraph 2, and this is going to be about fixing this personal problem, not talking about greater social problems. We'll leave that for later. This is, we've got a problem in the first paragraph, let's solve it in the second. The best way to fix a problem like this is to go shopping more often. A, by only buying what we need, we can be sure we'll use everything before it goes bad. B, we could also prepare food ahead of time and freeze it. So these are the solutions to the issue. Since we've talked about a personal problem in 1, we get personal solutions in 2. That's how we match it and balance it.
是的，所以这边提到那我们就只买需要的，确保坏掉之前能够把食物吃完。再来就是呢，也可以将食物保存在冷冻库。接着我们就要做出 conclusion 结论的部分了。
Yep, the conclusion is we can easily reheat our prepared food and make sure none of the food we've already bought goes to waste. So that's solving the problem. We explain exactly how the solutions work, we get to the answer that solves their personal problem, and that relates to the food waste problem we introduced in paragraph 1 and ties everything together.
最后呢，我们总结解决办法可以帮助我们办到的事情，然后再次去重申这件事情是很重要的，需要解决才不会造成食物的浪费。
So an outline can then have more details and transitions added when you turn it into a full essay. But with this kind of outline, it means you're following a logical, sensible structure. You can see in the outline, oh, I've missed a detail. Or you can see, oh, I've got too many details. Looking at your outline means you know you can take it out before you start writing the actual essay. Once you've written the essay, it's harder to go back and change it, but using an outline shows you where stuff is lacking, it shows you where you've got too much stuff, and allows you to fix all of that before you actually write the full thing. Okay, we're going to take a short break now, and when we come back, we're going to look through the full samples and see what our writers have done with them. Welcome back. Let's read through the samples and go through some of the writing tips and also some of the other grammar and phrases we find. So, basic sample. As the oldest child in my family, I have helped my parents shop and cook for as long as I can remember. My family is big, and we therefore buy a lot of food. Unfortunately, when we get busy, it's easy to let some of that food expire. Then we have to throw it out, and that's quite a bad feeling. The best way to fix a problem like this is actually to go shopping more often. By buying only what we need for a few days, we can be sure to use everything before it goes bad. On weeks when we have spare time, we could also prepare food ahead of time and freeze it. That way, we can easily reheat our prepared food and make sure none of the food we've already bought goes to waste.
这边呢，我们看到第一段当中有一个很好的用法，他先提出他看到的现象之后，他说 Unfortunately， 不幸的是，不好的是 When we get busy， 我们忙碌的时候，那就会让一些食物过期。所以呢 Unfortunately 可以带出食物浪费的这个事情。那接下来呢，我们还看到一个动词，当然我们一定要会，因为要写到食物过期，要用的是 expire。那接下来啊，在第二段当中，一个很好的用法，我们可以用 by 这个介系词加上 VING 来表示你所使用的办法。好，再来呢，我们还看到一个片语是 ahead of time. Pat, what does it mean?
If you do something ahead of time, you do it before it's needed. You do it before the time when you actually require it. So if you're talking about making food, doing something ahead of time means you go, well, what could we eat for dinner on Friday? Well, we don't have time to cook on Friday, but we do today. So let's cook it. Let's put it in the fridge or the freezer, which is the icebox part. And then we can reheat it on Friday. We've done all the work ahead of time, a long time before it's actually needed. So then, of course, we can talk about reheating it, and that's where things like the microwave, the oven comes in, and that's where we get verbs like reheat, to heat again. This is food that's already been heated, so we reheat it. We could also say defrost. Okay, that's another useful verb. It's not used in the article, but defrost means to take something out of the freezer and just let it warm up so it's not a big block of ice anymore.
也是解冻的动作。
Okay, so this is a sensible solution. A lot of families will go, okay, once a week, let's go to the supermarket. We'll do a big shop. We'll get loads and loads of stuff. We'll fill our fridges and our cupboards. But then another week goes by, they go, oh yeah, we bought that, but we didn't use it. Now we might have to throw it out. Whereas if you plan, I know what we need for the next few days. We go to the supermarket, we buy that, we use it, and then a few days later, we go to the supermarket again. And in that way, you don't end up with stuff at the back of your cupboards or somewhere in your fridge that you forget about because you bought so much stuff all at once.
So it's better to plan beforehand, right?
Yeah, you should definitely plan and make a shopping list when you go to the supermarket and think, what do I want and what am I going to use it for and when? Especially if it's fresh stuff, meat, vegetables, fruit, and so on.
And buy the food you really need.
Okay, let's move on to the advanced sample, and we'll see that here, rather than talking about a personal experience of a family and a solution to that, something that the writer has experienced but outside of the home. It's not just a personal problem, it's more of a social problem. So, advanced sample. As the member of my family responsible for taking out the trash, I had long been under the impression that our waste and recycling system in Taiwan was practically perfect. After all, we recycle most things and even have the opportunity to properly dispose of vegetable scraps and other food waste. However, I recently went to a buffet for a family dinner and had my eyes opened. We were at the restaurant for just an hour or two, but I saw the staff dumping out almost full trays of food every 30 minutes. It was shocking, and I resolved to no longer patronize buffets. The long-term solution is not avoiding buffets, though. The problem is bigger than buffets, so it must be solved with actions on a larger scale. While the laws that regulate food safety are vital to our health, many of them are too restrictive. This means that restaurants and stores cannot donate their leftovers even if they want to. About 5 years ago, France and Italy made laws that made it easier to donate unsold food. France, in fact, made it illegal to throw unsold food away. Laws that reduce food waste at the same time as they help hungry people are the correct decision, and more governments should follow this example.
OK， 所以我们在这个进阶范文当中呢，看到他的叙述更加的详细。他在一开始的时候先说自己是负责 taking out the trash， 是负责去倒垃圾的，所以他看到我们台湾的 recycling system 回收系统是做得非常好。然后他用了一个转折词，也就是 however， 带出他到外面去吃饭，到 buffet 去吃饭的时候看到的现象。那接着在第二段，他再更进一步的点出来。重点不是 buffet， 重点是 the problem is bigger than buffets， 重点是政府要怎么样去解决这个问题。那还提到说呢，有的时候因为这些规范太 restrictive， 也就是太严格了，所以店家们还不能够把他们的 leftovers， 也就是厨余捐出去。那他就提到了可以效仿别国的方式，像是 France 还有 Italy 这两个国家，这样子呢，我们就可以解决食物浪费的方法。
So yeah, we've got a few different words here. Patronize is just a fancy way of saying I go to that buffet, I pay for their food, I visit and use their services. Restrictive means too tight. These laws say, oh, no, as soon as a food hits this date or time, you've got to throw it away. You can't feed people. And the laws are like that because we don't want people getting sick. Restaurants don't want to be sued. People don't want to blame the governments and say, oh, you're letting restaurants poison us by giving them too loose laws. But you can go too far and make it so this food that's still good can't be donated to people. And the food is often leftovers. Leftovers is what's left on, could be on your person's plate, it could be in the serving dish, it could be in the big trays that buffet restaurants use. They're not given to people all the time. Sometimes leftovers can be given to animals. They're used for fertilizer. You sort of turn them into stuff that's used for growing crops. But sometimes they are just thrown away. So here we're dealing with a social problem. Yes, it's something that the person writing the article has experienced, and they're relating their experience of taking out the trash. And okay, my family deals with leftover food and packaging and things like that very well, but not everybody can do so because of the laws. The problem isn't going to be something that I can fix myself. All I can just do is say, oh, I won't go to that buffet restaurant. They waste food. That doesn't solve the problem. That may make the person feel better, but it doesn't deal with the issue. The issue has to be dealt with by what, as the writer says, actions on a larger scale. Countrywide laws, citywide laws that say we have to do this, we have to do this, and we have to do this. And examples are given to support this point. What France and Italy are doing. They can donate unsold food to food banks, to organizations, charities, and non-profits that feed homeless people, that distribute food to people in need, things like that. And so they're solving two problems. Firstly, they're reducing food waste. Secondly, they're giving food to people who are in need of food. So, yeah, it's big actions that are needed.
Right, and the writer also mentioned that the government has to do something about it.
Exactly. A restaurant could decide, okay, we're going to do our thing, but not every restaurant has the time and resources and the ability to do so. A government law and government support means that firstly, the restaurants have to do it or they'll be fined. And secondly, they can go, all right, government, or all right, charity organization, we need help. We're going to apply to you. We'll set up a partnership. We'll provide the food. Maybe you guys can collect it and give it to the right place. And that means that we don't have to spend all our time dealing with the problem. We'll work together with you to deal with it. We'll do our part. You do your part, and the system will work. I mean, it could even provide jobs for people working for these charity organizations or government organizations that deal with it. So it's a difficult thing to do, and making new laws always faces resistance from people who don't want to change or that they know that it's going to make things more expensive, but it is the right thing to do.Yes,
所以呢，在我们的 advanced sample 当中呢，我们把议题扩大，不再是 personal experience， 现在已经变成了是整个社会国家的问题了。
Yeah, you may have also noticed vegetable scraps being used in paragraph 1. Scraps is a useful word. It just means small bits and pieces. When you're talking about clothing scraps or scraps of material, it's kind of small pieces that have been cut from a larger cloth. Like if you had a cloth and you cut the shape of a t-shirt out of it, there'd be a few bits of leftover stuff around the edges.Those are clothing scraps or material scraps. Vegetable scraps means like you cut the top off a carrot, you cut the middle out of certain other fruits or vegetables. There's maybe a bit that's a bit brown that you think, I don't want to cook with that, so that's going to be left over when I'm chopping things up. Onion skins, banana peels, eggshells, seeds, all of those kinds of things. Leftover bits when you cook in the pot or that people leave a few bits of vegetable on their plate.Fatty bits of meat. That is food scraps.
Right, and we usually throw them away.
Exactly, but you can use them to give to animals, and you can certainly use them to grow new things. You put them in your garden in the right kind of place, and they'll help you grow stuff. But that is all the time we have for today. Thanks for listening, everybody. Hope you've learned something from these writing samples, and we'll talk to you again soon. From English Digest, I'm Pat.
I'm Elsie.
And bye-bye.
Bye-bye.